Yeah, happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Change the Lives, hosted by yours truly, Deonte Burden. We got an awesome show planned for you guys tonight. Tonight, what I wanted to have a discussion about, and it's a topic that I hear a lot of adults, and we've talked about it, kind of touched on it over the years. A lot of adults, and I think they're just probably being resentful more so than, being honest about certain things. And we're asking the question, did the schools prepare you for life? Did the schools prepare you for life? Because this is a deep and meaningful question, and the reason being is because there's this deviation between real education and real readiness.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
And a lot of times, I remember going to the country when I was younger, and my great grandmama would always say to me, I think she was, let me just be honest with you. I think she had a problem because, I was the one living in the city, and she would say something that stuck with me. And I think it was kind of like rooted in resentfulness.
Okay.
She would say, he ain't that smart. He just got book sense.
Okay.
And, and it was kind of hard as a child hearing that, because you're like, what's she saying?
What that
Then as I got older, like, again, that's, I think I'm, fully loaded with common sense. Because I had some dumb ass cousins, and I still got them too. But I was just sitting there like, that was a resentful thing because I was a very sharp young man, never disrespectful. But when you hear people say certain things like, it's like that, again, stating he ain't got no common sense, he just got book sense. Book sense ain't nothing. It was always something. And I always, as I got older, especially teenagers, like, what's the problem?
Right.
Because I was smart.
Right.
Because the cousins that I knew that struggled, this when we were teenagers, it's like that they would get a standing ovation,
right,
if they made any kind of progression or anything like that. Yeah, he got an award at school for reading a book.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And I want to have this conversation because there are a lot of conversations that people have where you hear it like, well, schools didn't get folks ready. We ought to deal with this. We ought to deal with that. My question is always the same. Hey, man, we can sit here and say the schools didn't teach you this, but being honest, at that particular time, how were you? Because people don't want to admit that they weren't the most studious person at 15, 16, 17, 18. Right. But I think people want to just think that a teacher is more than what they are. Like the schools, like a teacher is this magician. The teacher can make you interested in, in finance and science and And as a kid, been testing and gifted since elementary school. APS, we had a thing called challenge, and I ain't never really wavered on that. To be honest with you, people know me. They got their opinion. I think I'm a well-liked guy.
Right.
But I think people always like, they go pooch on this pooch stuff, whatever.
Right.
But I will say this. I have a good eye for, I say, man, that guy pretty sharp. Now, there's a lot of people that I grew up with, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, they have a lot of unfulfilled potential, right? Just you can go into why or whatever, but a lot of it can be circumstantial, and we're going to talk about that or whatever, or they may, things that went on or whatever. But I really want to have that discussion because I personally feel like people bring up too often what schools don't do and don't be as honest about what they didn't do.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Or guilty of that. We guilty of that. Key Love says, no, school didn't prepare me, but TV did. Key Love said 90% of my teachers were impactful. Trivia Thomas says, hey, Deonte, hey, Lab, hey.
What's going on,
What's going on?
Appreciate you tuning in. But you think about that, though, man. Sometimes you sit there and say to yourself, because especially when you get, I think, hit north of 40, we do a lot of reflecting.
Most definitely.
And everything with our lives and stuff. And because you enter in that phase of parenthood where your kids are either almost grown or you even may have grandkids. So you do a lot of reflecting about, hey, what if I, or if I, that kind of thought process. And I always look back a lot of times, you know, when I hear people say certain stuff, especially about New Year, like, nah, hell nah. I could have been this. I could have did that. No, you couldn't. No, the hell you couldn't. No. Hell no. Not in this life. Hell no.
I would tell you, when I was in school, my most impactful teacher was actually my 6th grade teacher. And I'm 54 and I still remember his name and everything. Mr. Hagenbrook, and he was like 6'8", but he was from the Netherlands. But his style of teaching really, you know, it really appealed, you know, I really took to it.
Let me ask you a question. When you say the word, you said the teacher was the most impactful. The question I want to know from you, was he impactful to you or impactful to everyone?
I think he was impactful to everybody in class.
So let me tell you the reason why I asked that is when I say I truly believe that you have to be able as an individual, even if the teacher is energetic, enthusiastic, and have things together, that's an individual thing they're gonna receive. It's like your parents talk to you, right? At the end of the day, you gotta make a decision you're gonna listen to them or not, right? Because some folks don't want to admit to they bump the head over and over again.
Right.
That it was just being hard headed. They didn't want to listen, right? That we talk about all the time accountability.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People can sit here and just say, well, this doesn't happen, have all kind of skills. At some point, this guy say, look, let me own it and move forward. And so that's why I want to ask that question, because I truly believe that people miss out a lot because they don't make the decision. Let me just listen. Let me just figure it out. Because I'll be lying to you to say every subject I had in class in school I was interested in. I never liked. I remember high school wasn't as bad, but I know when I got to college, like history classes, zoology, science, and a lot of history, I wasn't interested.
You weren't interested in
So it was just so painful to sit in there. Now keep in mind, especially in college, people that like political science majors, history majors and stuff like that, they would be in there just debates, arguing back and forth, whatever, right? Kicking out philosophies. And I'm in there like, man, when is this damn shit over? Right?
Okay.
Now I had the opposite of that in my business and math class. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And so at the end of the day, I did good enough to pass, but because my interest wasn't there, I ain't embrace it.
Right.
And I can be honest about that. It was nothing that the professor didn't do. There was nothing wrong with the delivery. I just didn't like it.
Just didn't like the class.
I'll be honest with myself about that.
I can give you that. I wasn't math. Math wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah,
it wasn't my cup of tea. Like I'm crying in math class. Like I'm like, oh my God. But English and all that other stuff, history, especially African American studies, I was all drafting all that stuff they used to give you in school. They don't give you them classes anymore. But I was like the most energetic person. But when it came to math class, you could have just put a sheet over my head and tell me to go see. I was not interested in math at all because I was terrible at it.
High school, like I said, I wasn't like that. I kind of picked up a lot of stuff easy in high school. When I got my grad school was a little different because everything you're doing was for that particular subject. Grad school was a little different. You know, so you get your master's, everything is towards that particular. Undergrad, you got to do them electives and all that other stuff. So, but I can just be honest about that. So when we have any discussion about the school prepared for life, that's why I said it's like a two-way we look at it. Well, one part is like, okay, we're getting this real education, then we get this world readiness, real readiness rather.
Right.
And that's why we had that conversation. So when we say what the schools really prepare you for, first of all, before we get started, we went to rolling from the get-go. This is Change Your Lives, hosted by yours truly, Deonte Burden. Right now, we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Twitter. But the main hub is the Change Your Lives YouTube channel where we have over 1,000 videos talking about mentoring, professional development, personal developing, and I always get a perspective from a Black father. I'm also streaming live on my other YouTube channel, my bigger YouTube channel, which is Mr. Short Dollar, because I do think there's some correlation with the information we talk about. So we do have Mr. Short Dollar attached. Lad was asking me earlier, but I do have it attached. But this is a Changing Lives show. Feel free to leave your comments in the chat. If you want to call in, the call-in number is 678-740-9894. Again, the call-in number is 678-740-9894. And before I get started, want to say first, what's up to my house producer, DJ Lab?
What's going on, brother? We done got started now.
Yeah. Also, what's up to my other producer, Sleek 316?
What's going on, Rika?
Hey, man, but yeah, we get, I think this is I love talking about this topic because most of the time when I get in this conversation with people aren't challenged about what they didn't do.
What they admitted, they're not going to admit it anyway.
Well, that's the thing about it, because you hear so many people say that the schools didn't do this, schools didn't do that. But if you start reflecting where you at, what they could have made me interested. I don't know. That's what I'm sitting there saying to you. Like I knew if what got my enthusiasm level, right? And I had, and I think sometimes I'm just being honest with you. If I just would have made a decision, Pooch, you learn a little bit more about the topic they're talking about. So you mean, because I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm the type of person I never like looking unprepared. And when I say that, to say going to a meeting and people talking over my head, I can't engage in a conversation and stuff, especially I know I'm supposed to be in that room. And I do not like that. I like being prepared, being engaged. Even if I'm not the person talking the most, or even talking half of the amount, I know I can add to the conversation if I choose to or don't, right? I don't like being lost.
Okay.
I was lost in them classes and I didn't care.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
I didn't care
what was going on.
I ain't give a damn. I was just ready to get out of there, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I had an ecology,
watching the clock.
Yeah, zoology class. I'm just thinking like them undergrad classes like I just did.
Right.
And again, that was me, right? And like I said, I didn't care. I'm very funny about that, not being prepared or whatever, this, that, and that. But I just can look back at 19, 20, 21 years old, just it wasn't a bit of interest, right? And that's why I say when I hear people say that, like, use my kids for example. When my kids will come, and this is one thing, I hope one or two of them listening in, well, Dad, the teacher explained it right. I said, all right, she ain't explained it right. Nah, they ain't explained it right. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let's be honest. Say 10 of y'all in the class. Did one or two, we ain't gonna go half. Did one or two, did they understand?
Right.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if one or two understood.
Let's talk about this.
Well, they said it. Now, if you didn't get it, you didn't get it.
Right.
But you saying they didn't teach it the way nobody can understand it, you didn't get it.
I mean, the whole class.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right. I get that, what you're saying.
So we got to get off this ship.
Right.
I'm like, hey, son, now listen. Now, all y'all fail. We might got a conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can roll with you.
Right.
But if just you the only damn dummy done say here and fail, did you study? Did you take it serious? Did you give up whatever? Did you pay attention? Let's be real for a second. Because see, one of the hardest things for people to do is own it. Once people own it, and I said that before, when I coached football over 20 years, I would always tell kids, I didn't do, son, you got to own it. Until you own it, we can't fix it. And that's anything in life. Right. We got to own what we do. When we own it, I messed up, whatever. Now, anybody say, but it's one of them compulsive, my bad.
Right.
Nah, right. Shit now. Hey, get your bad ass out of here.
Right.
We got to be able to fix it, right? So that's the thing about it. So we start talking about the school prepared for life. What I want to talk about is what the schools really prepare you for. And what I say, number one, is structure and routine. School teachers schedules, deadlines, and following instructions. Schedules, deadlines, and following instructions, right? We're going to go through the gamut, guys, so just roll with me. Second thing is school teach socialization. You learn how to work in groups, navigate peer relationships, and deal with authority, right? These are things that people say, well, this, they'll bring it up like these things that are negative. But you just seen yesterday, it was a fight out there at MLK High School. These kids fighting with a damn school teacher.
I did not see that.
A lot of it's made a lot of national news. You see a lot of times what they call these young folks now YNs, like it's cool.
Yeah,
but it's like it's trendy for a young person to disrespect authority, walk around, talk back, this, that, and that, and it's cool, but they're free thinking that whatever.
That's when the cameras come out.
But you know what's amazing to me? What I just thought was amazing, how you can't respect authority, how you can't follow rules, but you can go to jail. Now they're taking baths, walking in the line, that's for this, raising the hand, whatever. It's totally built on respect. Well, you don't have to
and control.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not that you learned it there, you're forced to do it there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're forced to do it there because you can't do nothing but that. And that's one thing about it. When people put out, I didn't, I couldn't do this. No. You knew. You knew. It's just that's why I say people a lot of times push stuff other people. I've heard plenty of times, man, they locked me up. They gave me this. Nah, bro. Look. You earned it.
Right.
Now, I ain't saying all distributions or different stuff is fair.
Right.
But a lot of times, people just got to own what they did. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was married. I wasn't no saint.
Right.
I had to own it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
I had to own it.
Most
right?
Definitely.
That's the thing. You got to sit here and say that at the end of the day. With that, I ain't trying to say I can have my reasons, but at the end of the day, hey,
that's it. Right.
And even so when my children ask me, hey, Dad, did you do this, that, and that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I can own it. And that's why I think sometimes people have to, when we start talking about what school teaches, you got to be honest with yourselves about what you did and didn't do. The third is basic knowledge, reading, writing, math, science, and all fundamental skills. I've also heard people say a lot of times, do you need that in life with doing that? I really do believe when people look at certain things, like you say, why do we need calculus? Why you need trig? Why you need that? Why are they teaching that? The thing of it is that people say things like that, in my personal opinions, because they really didn't understand the impact that stuff could have on your life. Because I'm just saying, I've seen these actuaries and I've seen these math majors, and they come out of school 150. Like I'm just saying. And me being having a math-based business degree, I went to school with mostly Indians, Asians, and Africans. Now they kind of struggle from a social standpoint. They're walking calculators.
Most definitely.
So a lot of times people will base, in my personal opinion, because they don't have what they didn't do, it was unnecessary. But they don't think about if they had them, right? That's the thing about it. So when we start talking about the things that school does give you, again, just ride with me. We're going to go through the things they don't. Just ride with me, guys. Those are basic things. So with these, the most important life skills you needed later on. And I can understand people saying, well, listen, I didn't necessarily need math or trig, and everything, and, schedules, deadlines, routines and stuff. People, when you start looking at it, those kind of things are important. If class started this, the bell ring, getting that, those kind of things are ingrained with you. Some folks say, well, look, they teach you to be an employee and doing all this other kind of stuff. What's wrong with that? Right. I mean, some things I'm just saying
right.
People can get into some of the things I hear with people sometimes. Well, everybody, you've been ingrained to be an employee and you can't think or whatever. We're going to the entrepreneur. You're talking to somebody that's an entrepreneur, self-employed,
but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I don't even think a lot of the stuff that you need to do that you'll ever learn in school. Yeah. I just think it's my person.
It's mind over matter on that part.
It's just in you, right? But those are basic things I think that what I believe the school does teach you. And a few things. Anybody got any comments, questions, anything like that?
I got Angela says, hey.
What's up, Angela?
He says, Key Love says, I highly recommend that college students take a minimum of one course, philosophy, psychology. I think that's right. Philosophy, psychology, learning the different psychologies on the hustle work is nasty work. So I guess learning it, how people react to certain things while you hustling is not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was in college, I started out as a chemical engineer, but I told you math is not my thing. And when I started going down the thing, I'm thinking, okay, chemical engineer, we're gonna do science, we're gonna do this. I want to know how to mix the gas, but I forgot the math part. And there's a lot of math in chemical engineering. And I was like, I know my limits. Math is my limit. I can add, I can do all that. But when the letters and numbers and the slashes start coming through and I can't do it. And I know I can't do it.
Funny.
I can't do it. I don't want to do it.
No, I got you. Because, I had a couple of my buddies. I wasn't in the military straight out of high school, but a couple of my buddies, they went to college and they wanted to be PE or kinesiology majors. And one of the main things that a lot of them like, man, hell no, you got to take chemistry. You got to know biology. Like those were supplemental classes, part of that degree program that didn't interest them to your point, like I didn't know it was part of that. I thought we just go in and do jump jack.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
And as silly as that may sound, but that was being honest, right? Because again, you coming from 18, 19-year-olds straight out of high school, you find out real quick that they try to give you this, holistic thing. Because, to the point about the psychology and sociology, I don't know, but most schools that I think of will probably try to get you to take one of those classes as part of one of those electives, psychology, sociology. I don't
philosophy. I definitely give you philosophy courses because when I was in college, I took psychology and philosophy course.
I forget what area that is, but I think most of them either have you take one of those classes.
And I even took it for the master's. I took it for the master's course because I took it. It wasn't elective. I just took it because I figured like if I'm going to be in business, I need to know how people think or see how people feel about it. So it was for me, it was a strategic thing. No. But when I like my sophomore years, junior year in college, I think I took both those years. I took it.
Undergrad, I don't remember all, but I mean grad school. They had a cohort, so it was already set up.
Yeah,
that wasn't no elective. So it was pretty much every class was toward that when I went. So every class was toward, that degree program. It was nothing that wasn't. They had
I was warned in my undergrad that they had a psychology course in there.
Well, mine did too. That's what I'm saying. I know, like even, and that may be in that first, second year and stuff. But they typically make you do that to that point. A lot of times we don't until you get to a certain maturity level. You don't necessarily know, fundamental foundational stuff that you do in life, how it's important to you big picture wise. Simple things as, we talked that time about the show Power. And this just me. And when I would see Tommy and Ghost negotiating, hey, we get 40% of this, then we, after we do that, give me 60% of that.
Right.
I ain't never seen no trap boy do math.
They gotta do math.
Nah, they count. That stuff that they were doing on Power, 60% of that, 40% of that. Fucking,
you don't think so?
Hell, I know not. Call in.
They chemists.
Nah, they ain't no damn chemist. Cooking bacon, man. Come on, look, man. Look.
My name show says school mostly teach you how to be a worker. You have to take what you can from it.
But that's the thing with it. And just again, I will say this. Appreciate that, my name show. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. See, I don't want to see when I hear that so many times with and that's, I'm not saying that's what he, the point I'm finna make is what he's saying is people say, well, it teach you how to be follow rules and get a job and stuff like that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Because at the end of the day, like we gotta have different hierarchy of stuff, right?
Oh, Mama was in it. Oh, I'm sorry, Mom.
Oh, what's going on, Mom?
Hey, Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. I just scrolled and saw it. I'm sorry.
Now but see, here's the thing: like everybody is not gonna be, the owner, the supervisor.
I just gonna say, remember we had that show like everybody not made to be the owner.
Yeah, and you really
and the CEO.
The people stick their toe out there.
Right.
To do that because, and we're gonna go through that. There's some things that are innate that you're gonna need to be in certain positions, and that can be either you being in upper management and things like that. Everybody gonna be different. So when we start talking about those things that school do teach you, I want to kind of slide over now. Feel free to call in and add if you put your comment in, but feel free to call in, and the call in number 678-740-9894. Again, that's 678-740-9894. Now we're gonna go through what school often don't teach you. The first thing, financial literacy, how to budget, manage credit, file taxes, right?
Okay.
Now, I will say this: the things I'm gonna go over, I believe a lot of schools do teach you this, but they kind of what I've seen, and this is going as a person that's been going actively to schools, high schools over the past 7 years.
Okay.
They're only going to teach kids that they got a good idea are going to be able to process. And I'm not necessarily saying your best students. When they say, okay, a kid can be at least studious with this.
Apply themselves to the curriculum.
Yeah, just at least sit your ass down and pay attention. Again,
right.
So and it may be because we had home ec and all that kind of stuff like that, where they maybe taught you how to balance a checkbook and do certain things, do the resume and stuff. But it's not focused as much because I think a lot of stuff is test based. I'm not an educator, so I don't want to sit here and say that that's not right or that's not wrong. With certain things, but I will say. It's different. You know what I'm saying?
It is different.
And I'm gonna share a story about yesterday. In a second, but we start when I finish with this. And again, we're talking about what schools often don't teach us: financial literacy. This is a big one. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Emotional intelligence, how to handle failure, manage stress, or maintain mental health. I think one of the main reasons they can't teach this because, again, teachers are teachers. They're not psychologists or psychiatrists.
Right.
So at the end of the day, they need damn mental health, damn break problem more than the damn students. So at the end of the day, we have to be realistic because people say that and bring it up, but I don't necessarily know if you got people equipped to do that. That's just like sometimes you see the police officer. They ought to be able to de-escalate. I don't think we know that this person has got a psych test, a little training.
In the background.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Right.
So to sit here and say, well, this person can go ahead and be this master negotiator and all this stuff, talk this joke here before they talk this knife out of this person's hand, I think we give a little too much credit to the damn police talk. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so they have expectations of teachers. You ought to be able to motivate them. You ought to be able to do this. You ought to be able to do that. Like, who do you think these folks are, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So, though that's that career readiness, how to choose a career path, build a resume or network. Far too often, and I got young men in my life. Shout out my son PJ. Shout out my nephew Adrian. They're leaving college and high school respectively. And you had them conversations of people saying, "Well, what do you want to do with your life, or what do you want to do?" And Uncle Poochie and Dad is sitting there like, y'all be careful listening to them damn people, because them folks ain't doing what the hell they want to do with their life. They're doing what they got to do with their life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Real talk now, Larry.
We've talked about this.
So when I hear these young men come at me with, well, I don't know if that's what I want to do with my life. Who doing what they want to do with their life? Majority of the people that are doing what they have to do with their life. If they lose a job, they panicking, they go get another job, pay the bills. Hopefully in that process, they like it or whatever, they grow to like it, and they can progress and do certain things. But the vast majority of people out here just survive.
Right.
So you start telling, well, if you don't want to do that, don't do that. Man, you better be careful who you listen to, because I'm a firm believer. If you're doing what you want to do, you did a lot of stuff you didn't want to do to get to that point. It is very hard to be in a position where you're doing what you want to do, right? So I kind of cringe when I hear younger people say, well, I don't know if that's what I want to do with my life, and this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be on the clock, and I don't want to do this and do that. And then,
but you like to eat, don't you?
Well, with that said, just say from 18 to 28 go so fast. You ain't acquired no skill set. You still bumping it. And now you start looking like, damn, man, I kind of want to do this and I kind of want to do that. And you put yourself behind. God forbid you hit your 30s. And now you sitting there you behind the 8 ball. And now you're trying to do certain stuff and everything. And you just, not that you can't do it, but you made stuff so much tougher. Because now you might got your age, you might have kids and everything. Like, it just, do get the BS out your life early. That's always been my advice to younger people. We're doing it. And put yourself in a position where you can do what you want to do, right?
I think a lot of times we have this idea of, I don't want to do that with my life, but sometimes you do things, you start out doing things that you necessarily don't want to do, and you fall into what you might want to do. When I started working, it was because when I got out of college and started doing my thing, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do at that. I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I had these degrees, and I knew I needed to be doing something. I had children and I had a wife, so I had to figure out my process as I go. And once I started working and doing certain things, then I fell into what I like to do. You get what I'm saying?
Well, isn't that uncommon? Not necessarily know what you want to do, because in reality, is most time you finish school, no matter what level, the options is, well, most of the reality is you got what you want to do, but you got what's available. And what's available dictates everything, right? That's all of us, right? People say, what kind of job you gonna do? What you gonna do? Like you can create the shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, yeah, who the hell? Like, well, you got your degree. What you gonna do?
I want this guy to give me $1 million.
Yeah.
Slick says, school teaches basic skills, but you need street and school to make it.
The thing?
And my name show says the most effective motivation is self-motivation.
And two things with it. Everybody gonna be fortunate to be in a situation they can get street education, and we do know. I think most people are not self-motivated.
Yeah,
most people are not self-starters. Most people don't have a lot of confidence and all that kind of stuff and everything. I mean, just real talk.
Right.
Because I agree, but the reality is, people ain't gonna necessarily. People get took all the time because they don't have street sense or whatever and stuff. So it's just unfortunately that's not always gonna be available to people.
Slick knew I was the greenest person she met. I was in the bubble. I got married young. I had kids young. I'm in school. I'm doing family stuff at 18. You get what I'm saying? So I was in a bubble for a very long time. Like I didn't need no street smart. Because I wasn't in the street. You get what I'm saying? I wasn't hanging out on the corner meeting this guy. We go here. And I wasn't doing it. I was already domesticated. You get what I'm saying? So I'm going to work, coming home, wife going to school. You know what I'm saying? We doing this career thing by now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We getting licenses and certified at 20 or 21 years old. We getting real estate and broker's license. We not hanging out. So I didn't need street smart.
Yeah. And I think most people on them tracks, okay, well, I'm on this progressive track and everything's good and fair. Then I'm on this life track where I got everybody, trying to take me, trying to get over this, that, and that. And a lot of times you don't necessarily be doing both.
Right.
I probably one of them old damn messed up people. I went through both at the same time.
Right.
And that was rough. You know what I'm saying? That was rough. I can look back and say I'm glad I made it through it. But I think most people are kind of moving like that. And then you had a moments that kind of collide.
Right.
But most of the time, people don't necessarily, okay, cool, I'm on this studious track and everything because, in essence, like I share my pathway with just corporate America. I'm in there like, okay, let me do this, get these degrees, this, that, and that. I still got to deal with these old prejudice jokers. I can't get this, that, and that. But, again, my mind, let me do this and that. Because I went to the military. For the most part, me in the military, some folks that were just ignorant. Most times it was merit. I did this, I got this. Did this, I got this. You get out, same thing. Then I got to deal with this redneck. I got this cat don't want to do this. Don't want to let me interview here, this, that, and that.
My boss bringing this son in that ain't went to no college to be my boss.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Even when I had, like, say, some awesome mentors, awesome supervisors. But I remember when I left corporate America, I never forget. I'm just thinking about this. When I shared that story about my supervisor interviewing me and didn't want to promote me or whatever. And there were two white gentlemen. I don't necessarily know they were race. I just think they were just buttholes. But the HR director was a sister. And she knew it was wrong. And she ain't said shit the whole time.
Wow.
She ain't say nothing. So, you sitting there like, me, I'm like, hey, you ain't gonna say nothing.
Right.
And she was HR director. I never forget that. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you got them. They screwing me. You see them screwing me. You ain't saying it. You too worried about your job. And you everybody. You supposed to be, safeguarding. So I say all that to say, you have your mind set to do this, and everything. But then you still got people. That's why I say a lot of times confidence theory wise are fair. Schools and stuff are fair because the rules is the people. People throw stuff in and all that kind of stuff in the mix. So again, we said those things about school does prepare you. The last one being critical thinking. Memorization often outweighed exploration, analysis, and problem solving in real world terms. I would say this, guys, being a gifted program, elementary all through high school, that's all we did. Deductive reasoning, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, that's all we went over every week. So I'm talking about like from 5th grade to 12th grade, that's all I was doing.
Right.
Like, we used to meet like once a week and everything. So if anybody familiar with it, and I was told about a week ago, they still had that in Atlanta public schools. It was challenge.
Okay.
But that was critical thinking, reasoning, deductive reasoning, problem solving, just stuff that always thinking outside the box. But that's all we did. So I'm just talking about from elementary to high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's those are skills that that they worked on. But I knew the majority of my friends didn't do it. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think majority of them could think like that. Because let me say this, Lab, and I don't mean this in no insult. I'm one of them people. I can handle 8, 9 things at a time.
Right.
I might come here, Lab, I'm tripping, but Lab, I got to run that big. I got this. Lab, I got to do this. We got this going on. I can do that.
Right.
It might bother me, again, I don't move with it like I did maybe 10 years ago, but I can handle that at a good level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people, I can't do this.
Right.
Let me do this,
right.
And then I get to that.
Then I get to that.
You're like, what the hell you mean? You just got to turn something on. And I get frustrated when I see people like that. But with that said, I'm very honest. I know everybody's mind. Don't worry like that. I can juggle 8 or 9. Really can. And a lot of people can't. And that's what I think a lot of people don't be honest about. When you really see people that can do that kind of stuff, we start talking about the schools and stuff like that. Man, look, I ain't saying you're dumb. I ain't saying you're slow. But it's a different way some people process. And I don't think people really want to admit they can't do certain things like other people. That makes sense.
But I think it's a separation though. I think social things like drama and just stuff like I don't handle that well. I can't handle the social part. Like I can't handle if you got a problem, then Slick got a problem, and I got a problem. Not school wise, but just emotional or something may have happened in the family or something like that, or stuff like stuff that's an emotional part of life. I can't handle a bunch of downward spirals of emotional things. You get what I'm saying? Now, when it comes to work and all that, I can handle all that. I can do 4 or 5 things at one time, come to work and doing this podcast and all that stuff. I can do that. But when it comes to the emotional part of life and trying to handle a bunch of emotional things at once, I am not going to be able to do it.
Nothing wrong with that. But outside of, personal maturity, meeting people and stuff, or even going to therapy, what else would you learn how to handle it?
Right.
So I'm just saying with those kind of things, but people can say stuff like they didn't work with my confidence. They didn't do that. Yeah, the teacher ain't got no damn confidence.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, that's why I said I don't want to get too far away when people say, have certain expectations. With certain now, you shouldn't mistreat nobody.
Right.
You shouldn't call them by their name. You shouldn't exclude folks from certain stuff. But I know, I'm just thinking that with coaching, a lot of times when you do plays, just say a football practice, you can have a kid that's a great athlete. But I've had great athletes, but they didn't process.
Right.
And like you may say like when you got, just say a 10-on team, you got your quarterback. Quarterback may not necessarily be your best athlete, but that's usually your best processor. Because he can, y'all do this.
He can watch the whole field.
Make sure everybody's, simple. Everybody set. Everybody, he did this, that, and that. We call a play. He remember it. Because a lot of times, your running back might be the best athlete, but he can only remember stuff that he's involved with.
Right.
That makes sense.
I get what you're saying.
And a lot of times people don't understand that. And I remember even with my older son went to college. One of his trainers said something that stuck with me. He was just saying like schools were dealing with him. He said the other kid, he just a good athlete because buddy of my son. And he was like, I said, what's the issue you think with him? He said, man, he don't process. He said, your son, because I don't think people don't realize, shout out the draft tonight, man. Good luck to all the young men. You just say the secondary. I don't think unless you understand football, if you're in the secondary, safeties or your corners, you got all this going on in front of you, right? You got the pre-snap, whatever they set up in, ball snap, wide receivers may cross, one may do this, go underneath this, that, and that, and everything changes from a responsibility standpoint. I may have this if that guy goes this way, but I might have go here if that guy come this way. And you got to have 4 to 5 guys on the same page, understanding what they see. They got to make an adjustment and trust that you make the adjustment based off what's different with you, right? And remember, we're going at this kind of speed. And if you this and this ain't on the same page, that's the difference between the $10 million. You know what I'm saying? Real talk.
What's his name? The guy who plays both defense and offense?
Travis Hunter. Yeah. Absolutely.
He knows all the plays.
Absolutely. But see, that's the thing about it. And that's why You know, he probably I think they got he's like number 2 pick. Whatever. I mean,
they say number 1, but they say something. The person that the team at number 1 needs a quarterback.
No, I just ran across my phone. He just got picked number 2.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's the thing about it, because again, he's from Atlanta, and those kind of things, like, you don't have too many of those,
right?
Because you got to be born with that,
right.
A lot of folks say, my son fast, my son this, that, and that, but your son ain't. Man,
Right.
I'm telling you, that's
that part,
and a lot. That's what a lot of people miss with athletics. And those people aren't necessarily ones that can excel in the classroom, but when this is on the same page, that's usually like your top tier athletes, because again, being able to see and process with your body, that makes a world of difference. And I just think a lot of times people don't want to be honest with themselves
and their limitations.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We all want to be great at everything, but we got to be honest with what we're not great at and try. We can improve on it, but if we're not great at it, we're just not good at it.
I'm class president. We're getting ready for our 30-year reunion, Lab. I have no problem telling that committee I'm great at structuring and planning. I'm not a creative person.
Right.
So listen, y'all. We'll talk. I help. We will implement it, and and do that. But if y'all say we want to do this, and we want to do this, and have this, that, and that, I'm cool.
Right.
Now I'm looking at the other side. Well, look, man, they're gonna cost us $30.
Right.
They're gonna cost $400. We ain't already got them, but this much spend, so we can't really. That's me.
Right.
But to sit here and say, well, no, the yellow, the pink, I don't. That ain't me.
And you know it.
And I ain't even finna get into that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So, but people are just so stuck on like it's what we talked about before. Sometimes when you're being honest, that don't mean you hating or quitting. Just being honest. You know what I'm saying? People sometimes you think somebody ain't listening to you, and you're like, no, I'm telling you, no, I hear what you say.
Right.
I just don't agree with it.
Right.
And sometimes, well, no. But I'm saying, I understand what you're saying, but the shit ain't right to me. I get it.
I get it.
Ain't nobody hating. They just don't be, and they being honest. Like, no, man, you done did this so many times. We can't. How you do this? We need to go do something else, man. You might get it the next time, but what we're doing, we can't afford to do that.
Right.
So that's what I think people be missing. So we start talking about what schools didn't teach: financial literacy, emotional intelligence, career readiness, and critical thinking. Right. So then we go into this next phase, guys. Feel free to call in 678-740-9894. Again, that's 678-740-9894. Anybody got any comments in the chat? No. So this is where we go to the next phase of it, guys. This is where where I want to just ask folks. When we say what the schools didn't do, or whatever they did do, or what they did, what they do, we then went over what they don't do. And then we go to the next phase. Were you ready to be prepared? And number one, that readiness to go on that journey. This is why I think a lot of folks just don't necessarily want to own it, right? Was you really that kind of student? Was you really interested?
If they had offered it, would you have took it?
Yeah, that's the thing about it.
Right.
I've met plenty of people, and just say like in dating, women like, yeah, my ex-husband, my boyfriend, he was smart, this, that, and that, and then you get to know these folks like, I'm not really smart, and you ain't either. What I'm saying? Let me tell you something, Lab. Now, I don't mean to sound funny. I got a different view of the word smart. Right. And when I see somebody, I'm like, damn. It was that cohort I had when I was in grad school, and it was mostly brothers, about 20 of us, and I think probably about maybe 12, 13 were brothers. Them sharp dudes. Like I can be around people like, man, like, man, that's what's sharp. Like, I've been around one white guy that was in John, he was sharp, man. Like when I know somebody sharp, like, okay, cool. I've seen it in high school, seen it in the military, like, okay. And sometimes when I hear people say, well, they're smart or whatever, I'm like, them ain't smart.
Right.
Smarter than you.
Right.
Now, that's why I said, like, no, hell no.
Right.
Because when you see people going back to what I started looking at, I'm looking at how they handle to what you just said, something, how do they handle some things that they can't control? When you start talking, especially when we start talking about business, leadership, and everything like that. Some of that stuff may be stuff that you learn in the classroom, maybe math, English, history, or whatever, and some of it be to what you said before. They can handle stress. Right. They can, they handle change. Right. You know what I'm saying? No problem. Yeah, exactly. And it's moving at a high level.
Right.
That's the other side of it.
Right.
Like a high level, right? And when you see that, like, all right, man, you know, okay,
you
okay,
good. I got that.
Yeah, you ain't got no problem with Poochie. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And I have something like, who the fuck? This is damn DEI. This is DEI. Shit. Who the hell put her in charge? Get his ass out of here.
Right.
So again, we asking this question now, were you ready? So number one, this is the key thing, guys. We asking that question when we say school didn't get them prepare you, right? So this is the question you want to ask yourself. Was you emotionally mature enough? Like some students aren't mentally, emotionally in a place to receive what they're being taught. And a lot of times, like, you know, again, just be honest with yourself. Was you that type of person where they could have made me? Listen. If you got one or two kids, they getting it.
Right.
That don't make you dumb, don't make you slow.
Some people process slower.
Process different. We're gonna say differently. We're gonna use friendly words. Differently.
People process different.
Yeah. And so I don't think people want to sit there on that. That emotional maturity. Could you did they have to tell you 2 or 3 times, hey, get up, lab, sit up, pay attention. You know what you see what I'm saying?
Right.
I think I gotta pride myself on my kids, just like, you know, like, hey man, look, you know, take this, ask this, that, and that. Now, I ain't finna sit here and say that it's been smooth, but they always done it.
Right.
But I kind of pride myself on, hey man, you know, handle stuff this way, you know, because the same screw there, you know, I'm always gonna be on their side.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna go argue with a teacher or talk with somebody about you that you feel like might have been wrong, but you in actuality didn't do what you supposed to do
in the first place.
Because ain't nobody finna embarrass Pooch.
Right.
I learned that with my oldest son, going there with all that black dad shit, and poof, she put this big old thing. But Torian didn't do this, and Torian didn't do that, and Torian didn't do this. And I'm like, you little motherfucker. Right. Don't you ever have me this, that, and that? And you know what? My stupid ass, you know, again, I'm 25, 26. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, this don't make, you know, I'm fussing. But it was my fault. Because I should have been more focused, and it never happened again. Hey, man, listen. Did you do this stuff before I go ask and all this other stuff? Because you know I'm going to see it.
Right.
Right? That same thing like now, you had the Infinite Campus. So there's nothing William can't, you know, again, like, William, I see the grade.
Right.
I see it. Why are we talking?
Why we having the discussion?
Are we talking? Like, you know, come on now. It's these zeros. What it is.
Right.
You know, Daddy, I gave it to her. She just input. She, you know, I gave it to her like this, that, and that. So turning in early, we had that conversation. But a lot of times people, you know, you don't have to, there's some people out there you don't have to say something to. They're gonna be there without you saying it. They're gonna, you know, you come home, you see it, okay, the house need to be clean. I walk in, the house clean. Sometimes, hey, man, you know, the bus coming, whatever, they getting up. Like they mature enough to understand. You can say it to them, you know, a minimum amount of time. I'm gonna just say it all had to be one, but a minimum amount of times and stuff. And you know how your kids are.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people not receptive to, hey man, listen, you know, and when you look at it from an education standpoint, if a teacher got 20 students in the class, I can't focus on Deonte.
Right.
I can't focus on lab.
Right.
And everybody else getting it. At some point, we got to break off. Now, young man, young lady, come on Wednesday evening at 4. We can help you out with tutoring. Now, that's when you say take the accountability with that. If you did do it, you did. If you didn't, you know what I'm saying? That's why I think a lot of times people don't want to miss. Okay, where were you at from a maturity standpoint with that? Life circumstances, stress at home, lack of support, or trauma can block learning. You know, we from the 90s. A lot of our mamas and daddies on dope.
Right.
Uncle, granddaddy, whatever. On dope, selling dope. A lot of times people don't talk about it, especially that 40 to 60 dynamic.
Yeah.
A lot of us, the 80s and 90s, we had a parent or somebody close to us on drugs, which shaped a lot of folks. And that's a lot of, to me, unchecked trauma that a lot of people to this day, because nobody talks about that.
Right.
We'll have whole restaurants and songs about the trap. But if you really knew what happened in the trap screwed your mama, the trap robbed you, the trap sat there and you know, maybe raped your sister, molested you. That trap
great.
Hey, come on now, great to whatever. But what I'm saying to you, when you start looking out here, trap this and trap that, man, do you know what the trap did?
Right.
Your trap had your daddy selling everything out the house.
Right.
That what the trap did.
Right. I don't think people realize the PTSD that we suffered from that.
Well,
that's not only just people we may have known doing it and suffering from it, but also the neighborhood we lived in that was devastated by it. I mean, that was a war zone for some of us.
I think it's impossible if you grew up in a major city in the late 80s and through the 90s if you weren't impacted in some messed up way.
And the west side of Chicago was no joke.
What I'm saying, like,
you had gangs and drugs.
Well, that's that's the thing about it, Lab. It's just so many of us. I'm looking back at this. You know, it wasn't just even with your parents. It'd be your parents, your uncles, your aunties. You know, just so many people. That dope hit hard. And my generation, I'm 48. Our parents on the dope, but then we were going to jail for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's like two whole generations.
That was
just wiped out.
But I'm gonna say for me, school was my sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school to get away from all that. Like I would stay at school all day. I would go to school at 7:00 in the morning because luckily for me, when we grew up in school was a little different. I'm 54, so school was a little different. Mm-hmm. It was open early. You go get breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just a different place to be. It wasn't the same thing as it is now. We go there at 7:00. I get breakfast. I hang out at school. I go to the library. I go to the gym teacher. You know what I'm saying? I would stay at school, and then school would get out at like 3:15. I would be at school from 7 to 3:15 because for some reason there was just no drama in the school as far as the drug stuff. It wasn't in school like that back then.
Let me ask you a question. But do you think most of the kids your age, just peers, that they had that kind of approach with it, where it was kind of like a getaway sanctuary? Or
I think 50% of
50% of that's cool.
60% of people did, because it was a lot of kids in school early. I mean, I was surprised because in Chicago, it don't matter what neighborhood you stayed in, your thing was to get to the school. So you could stay in any neighborhood and go to a certain school you wanted to go to, as long as it was in the city of Chicago. You just had to get there. So you have people taking CTA to school, high school stuff. It was just the way it was. And 7, 8 o'clock in the morning at school already.
Yeah, I look back at it. It's just what the biggest thing, that structure went in focus, went in force. With that, just because, like I said, just my peers that I knew, like, okay, may have issues with family, just like with drugs or different stuff like that. It's just that structure went in force. Mm-hmm. If you're going to school or not, if you're doing your homework or not, if you acted up in school, somebody whatever this, that, and that, because you'll see, just say your friend, mom or dad come to school, like, man, that mom or dad a junkie. Like, we could see,
right.
We already knew, and then, like I said, just it wasn't none of that coming. Mm-hmm. Like I said, just that structure, and that crumbled a lot of stuff because the leadership was just gone. That makes sense.
Yeah, I get that, but I think the peers back then were different for me anyway, because I wasn't the richest kid in the neighborhood. I had struggles with clothing and stuff like that and shoes, but I had peers that would give me stuff. They're like, "Oh, hey man, what size you wear? Man, I bought these shoes." So they would do it to a way to where it wouldn't be embarrassing.
Well,
I'd be like, "I'm gonna pay for them." They'd be like, "Yeah, give me," and I give them $10. Like, man, I'm done with that. Don't worry about that no more.
Well, come me and my partners to share a shirt or whatever. Cause hey, you wear this week, I wear that week. We're going to. I get that part, but when we talk,
I'm talking about giving.
Well, just say they gave it to you. But what I'm talking about is just when we start talking about when we're looking at those reasons why you might not have did stuff. A lot of that stuff weren't there. Weren't there. Just say if you couldn't afford it, whatever this, that, and that. It could be where it's no big deal. But a lot of folks, we look back at it like, hey man, it just wasn't there. Just I some folks can say they had a rough upbringing with that. If you want to own it or not. Or, because again, sometimes I always say, you got 3 siblings, 2 okay and 1 wrong, and 1 that went a certain way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like, hey man, it's not a bad family. Right. It's just a dysfunctional family, just a dysfunctional member. Right. Yeah, you got to own that. You know what I'm saying? Right. Brother and sister ain't saying that. But also just relevance. When students don't see the connection between school and real life, motivation disappears. And I'm gonna say something with that. I think more people fall into that because typically, if your parents push or your support system pushes you to in sports, make that a focus, you grow over there. If they focus you going to college or whatever, do that. Focus on trade, do that. Focus you just getting the hell out of there and we'll find something to get out, do that. There may be some mixes of both. Once you play sport, once you do well academically, once you do this, get on out or whatever, you do sports, but you socialize and come on out. There may be some mixes, but a lot of times, because even though we get inspired by the people we see at school and everything like that, the people we live with or we have a community with, that's usually our biggest inspiration, the people that most influential. Because I remember just being younger, and my uncle got this, that, and that. He ain't go to school. Or this person did this, that. They went to the military. Now they set for life, right? That's what you're the kid, you see it.
You see billionaires, millionaires. So I didn't go but to the 11th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I'm just talking about for what you got a connection with.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of times, if you whatever the people that's probably the most closest to you, and you're gonna kind of see stuff being normal with doing it. And I had a conversation with my nephew the other day, like, hey, bro, the older you get, you're gonna find the people that are the most closest to you, the older people that you look to, gonna disappoint you the most because you thought that they had money,
right?
You thought they were stable, and as you start getting older, you be like, man, they ain't got nothing.
They ain't got nothing. They got less than me.
As you get older,
right,
the people that you look up to the most gonna disappoint you the most because again, you're thinking they're here, and as you start ascending, you start like, damn,
right.
I thought such a working. They living out women. They've been gambling. Da. This, that, and that, man. They running up credit cards. And you seeing it. You an adult, like, what the hell? And they were always that way.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's all of it, like, damn, that person might have been your hero. But you getting older, you like, and you looking, they like, damn, man, I thought you were doing this. And don't worry about all that, whatever. And that's why I say you have to be kind of very conscious about what you're doing for yourself. So those are, we start looking back, being honest with ourselves about, were you really, really prepared?
Right.
Again, tonight show we're talking about this, schools prepare you for life.
Slick said that was the magnet program down here. I guess when I was telling about going to any school you wanted to go to back in Chicago, that was just a natural. That was just a natural how we did it when we were in school back then. T Love said schools are sanctuaries when you love life and learning as much as possible in a short period of time. Let's Talk America Radio says education is a critical experience in and outside the classroom. T Love says in the 70s and 80s, PBS and Compton's Encyclopedia were my best friends. Yeah, my grandmother most definitely had encyclopedias. What's going on? Joseph Child said, hey, Miss Short Dollar.
What's going on?
Yeah, my grandma definitely has
Coach Child. What's happening, Coach? What's happening with you?
Most definitely had encyclopedias. Most definitely. I think the resources that we had when we were younger are not necessarily the same resources. I think the resources are more now, but I don't think a lot of kids know how to utilize them like we did. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think that children, when we say you got everything you need in the palm of your hand, I think it's 3 or 4 things they use it for: to order food, to be on social media.
Hold on, Dad. Hold on, lad. You saying now? Them choosing not to use it and them not knowing how to use it, 2 whole different things. Because
I don't necessarily think they know how to use it.
They gotta know, because at the end of the day, if I want to go somewhere, they know if they want to go somewhere, they want to get a hold of something, they know to Google it. If they know if they want to cheat and find some stuff on test, they know how to go on Chat GPT. I got 2 in college now.
Okay.
I got 1 in middle school. If they want access to information that we use, it's just the choice.
Okay, well, we're gonna go. I'm gonna agree with you then.
Choose
not the right way.
I definitely, now if it's not of interest, hell no. They we're doing it. But realize knowing how to use it, definitely do. Interest in using it and stuff like that. No, hell.
Well, I guess I'm gonna go with my church. We keep talking about when I was in school. I have children too, and my kids had an interest at a certain point. But when we put them in the military school, and I was trying to guide them, like, look, military school, you doing well. Even they were telling them, like, once y'all get out of here, y'all go straight to the military. Y'all be officers because y'all already been doing this and stuff. And it was like, once they graduated, they were like, wah, 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 wah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just a deflation of motivation and understanding. I didn't get it, but that's just what happened. And that's all three of them.
Let me say this, Lab, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And I done had that conversation with all my children and my nephew, young men I done mentored. You got to make a tough decision. Mm-hmm. Life is a correlation between sacrifice and success, right? And I think so many times people, when you're younger, you think success is much easier.
Right.
Than what it is. Typically, the ones probably have a better grasp on it. Probably kids that probably have done some kind of competing at a younger age because they understand, look, if I train hard, I can compete and win. Because people say a lot of times with athletes, like they sport or whatever, this, that, and that. But I'm going to be honest with you, Lab. It's very, very hard. And you talking about, I've been on damn USA track and field board. It's extremely hard to compete at a high level if your ass ain't prepared. Mm-hmm. Now, you might have some prodigies here and there, but to get, compete at a certain level, even as a youth, you're going to pay some dues. Mm-hmm. You're going to deal with some pain. And I think a lot of times, if you haven't been in those kind of mixes, you don't really understand that correlation of, let me make these sacrifices and do this, and then I got potential to do that. Far too often, people don't necessarily experience that. Mm-hmm. And when you 18 or 19, you still got these wants.
Right.
I want to be the top podcaster. I want to do this and I want to do that, right? And they say it, but they have no idea of the pain that comes along with that, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about this all the time. How many people, okay, well, I'm going to, I want to do a podcast. Man, me and my buddies, we be sitting around.
We be talking all the time.
Yeah. Man, I see it all the time. People do shit, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. But if you say, okay, we want to just do a podcast, we want to just sit and talk, chop it or do what we normally doing, fine. But you say, I want to do it and make some money. I'm going to just tell you something right now. Did you see I did the video yesterday, and I want to get off topic with the Shannon Sharp stuff. And and the thing was sticking with me, like, I wouldn't be tripping about ESPN firing me.
Right.
Because hell, he got one of the biggest podcast clubs, Shay Shay, and all that. But then, like in the video, it hit me. And I don't know if he owned it.
Right.
And then I Googled it. It's part of Coward Media.
Okay.
And that's Colin Coward's company. So that's why I say a lot of time, because you can be very successful with a podcast. You turn around if you got
financial backing, like that.
Yeah, a couple, saying, $30,000-$40,000 to pay for the Google exposure and all that stuff, drive traffic to it and stuff like that. You'll be very successful. Mm-hmm. But I don't think people understand the time and money.
With Cat Williams interview that you didn't know was gonna go like it went.
Yeah, but you turn around and pay the money for the Google exposure to drive the traffic to them. See, like all that stuff, Lab, you still got to pay for. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, cool, I gotta do this. The algorithm just doesn't. Because I can put the same thing that everybody got.
Right.
I can put the same thing in there for the tags. But it's this. Like, real talk.
Right.
Because people make videos, hey, do this and do that. You can get
that ain't it.
No.
That ain't it.
No. So I just think sometimes people don't necessarily want to be honest with themselves with that. So we start thinking about the schools prepare us. We got to look at what we do to bridge the gap, whether school failed us or not. We weren't ready. It's less about blame. It's more about what you can do now. And the question you can ask yourself is, what do we want today's school to teach you that we didn't get? What do we want? You can say, well, look, because I hear it all the time, financial literacy, how to do trades and all this other kind of stuff and everything. But I always go back to it is that when you start going into looking at compound interest, rate of return, things like that, I can just say this when I make these same videos, y'all asses ain't looking.
Right.
They don't hardly get any views.
Right.
I got all this stuff. You start looking at we got that math.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You want to learn it. But, when you get older, you ain't got certain stuff. Now it's the interest. But nobody want to know about that. You start looking at, R minus 1, R2 over there divided by C and all this stuff equals that. You don't want to deal with that.
No, I don't.
Huh? But then when you hit 40, 50, you ain't got enough duckies in the tank. Well, they should have taught us that in school.
Right.
Well, they did. And the kids that did learn
it, you pay attention.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Well, like me in the financial service MAD program. You know what I'm saying? Everybody want that. I started out, to your point earlier, I needed a monitor card to get ass in football practice. I just ended up liking it.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the end of the day, people have to be realistic about what they at, because we can start saying what we don't want, what we can do, but be honest. Are the kids really going to be interested in that, or is it still going to be the same kids that were open to learning and doing certain stuff going to do? Because a lot of time, be honest with you, like it or don't like it, is you the structure enforcement, because you going. I think very far and few. Most people are not self-driven. Most people are not going to be, self-starters and initiate, sit down in the class and want to learn. Like, some folks got to sit here and say, "Hey, look, man, you need to do this. Go to class, this, that, and that," and the enforcement there. And then they take on from a maturity standpoint. Right. You get what I'm saying? I get what you're saying. So I think people got to be realistic about that kind of stuff with that. How can we support young people in becoming ready to learn mentally, emotionally, and practically? Do you got the time? Can you can you put those structures in place? I know this by being in the 108 years, man. People don't want to sit here and spend no time with these kids. They want stuff for these kids. That don't mean they don't care. That don't mean they don't love them. But the time you got to spend going in and doing stuff and everything and not get paid for it, people don't really, you know what I'm saying? I got to go to work. Right. I can't get out of work.
Right.
Who's going to holler at them?
Right.
Who's going to holler at them? I always tell you guys, my personal opinion, I don't want to speak for other people. I always look at a lot of mentoring we do. We made a good kid great. The kid that's doing well, we can polish him up, give you a great product. That's my opinion.
Right.
Well, y'all can go get this. Y'all can do that. You do it. You do it.
Solve that problem.
And people have no shortage of telling other people what they can do to fix problems, but they never want to do it themselves. So we start looking at what can we have these kids learn and all that kind of stuff, or you got the enforcement at home. But I've noticed you got some kids that are child prodigies. But what I've noticed most of the time, the kids that tend to do well are the kids that got the most support, instruction, and enforcement at home.
At home.
Real talk.
Right.
Real talk. You got some kids that don't, hey, listen, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? You see it sometimes that they got 4 siblings and all 4 of them knuckleheads. But that one right there, ain't nobody sat down and read with him. They just different.
Okay.
They very far and few between. But most of the kids that are actually doing stuff, you have, parents that make sure they go to the tutors. Just like the same thing that the one that excel in athletics. You a lot of it is they got somebody done paid for the trainers and did this, that, and stuff. The things that nobody was around to force them to do. Right. Those are kind of things they go level. So the kids are gonna be a top musician or whatever. The parents paid extra money for the instructors and all this other kind of stuff. Make sure, hey man, y'all do your homework. Did you study? Put the phone down there. Those kids, typically the way that happens. The ones that just like that, they there, but they're very far and few between. And so then the last one, what role should parents, mentors, and communities play in filling the gaps? I think it's time, man.
Time is
important. Now, I'm gonna tell you something, man. I love dealing with kids. I love it. And I've been doing this shit, man, way over 20 years. And I used to tell for like, you can't expect the coach to do so much dealing with a kid for an hour, 2 or 3 times a day, a week. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
They got structure here, but the rest of their life is no structure.
It's right. It's disorganized.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think people got to be realistic with that, because at the end of the day, if a person choose to be, disrespectful, unruly, or doesn't respect authority and stuff like that, I mean, you either can do it on your own, or you get forced to do it.
One of the two.
And again, I don't want to make light of it and stuff like that, because I do think this, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I think that some people that are incarcerated in jail, people just walking around here are probably one bad decision way that could be us. You know what I'm saying? I had a drink, got in the car, hit somebody, boom. I got to fight with this guy and stuff like that. We both got locked. You know what I'm saying? my woman getting on my nerves. She threw something at me. I hit her. Now I got to, you know what I'm saying? I think that could be any one of us, like
definitely
any one of us, right? So, that whole thought of, hey man, this joke here, crazy because he went to jail. That could be any of us, right? But I will say this, lad, and I'm finna be honest with you. There's a big lump of people beyond that don't necessarily own what they do until, like I said before, if you don't really own what you did, because you hear, well, they gave me this, they put me down for this, that, and that. No, you did it.
Right.
You did.
That was your fault.
Do I think it happens a lot where people get over sentenced and over it? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think a lot of times this shit, me included, like, hey man, don't put yourself in that situation.
Right.
Don't put yourself in that situation. I can look back with a lot of stuff in my life. Hey man, Pooch, you shouldn't have been there. Pooch, you shouldn't have. Pooch, you shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Hey, you shouldn't have did this and shouldn't have did that. But now, because with that, now I'm owning it, right?
Right.
I'm saying, okay, I did this, and that's whatever. A lot of times folks don't want to do that, like.
Yeah.
People don't want to do that. And again, when we start looking at the whole piece of what education did or didn't, I'm still stuck on, like, hey man, what were you doing?
What part did you play in?
Because we were getting it. Well, they should have made me. You got to get out of that.
Yeah.
Because the older we get, people are less reluctant to help you with anything any damn way.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
I didn't see this comment. Let's Talk American Radio says, who was your most influential teacher, parent or teacher?
Influential teacher? I would say everybody had a different kind of influence. If I can be honest with you.
That most influential teacher, meaning who you feel like taught you the best or the most, your teacher or your parents? That's how I kind of took it. It just was different. Your parents teach you a lot of stuff that I think that what we just said, like some of them soft skills or handling pressure, this, that, and that, or what not to them do. And sometimes your teachers can't have the same kind of influence. It's just different. I would say this, Larry. I'm a firm believer in we control, no matter if we're a young kid or an adult, we control our own destiny in regards to how we want to be able to receive information or certain things. You're not always going to get game the way you want to. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we talk about this a lot. I got plenty of OGs that tell me stuff that I don't like. And people say, well, you don't have to say it this way. You don't have to say it that way. Well, first thing I say shit to you.
Right.
A person said, let you, just let you fall and fall, and don't say nothing, and they know better.
Right.
Or a person say, hey man, that's effed up, man. You're doing it the wrong way. Like, damn, man, you ain't have to say it like that. It's supposed to let you bump your head.
Right.
And I just think sometimes people just got to be like, hey,
realistic.
Especially, my men out there, get some thick ass skin. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
God damn, man. Oh man, I'm just telling you, bro. There was so many cats, and a lot of it got to be people even as parents, with ourselves and how we do our children. How many times you gonna sit here and not let them learn from their mistakes? How many times you gonna catch them when they damn fall? How many times we gonna sit here and make excuses for things they do? And probably they keep doing it because we ain't let them go through stuff. We gotta be honest with ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I do a pretty good job, but I'd be sitting here lying if I was like, man, I probably should have let that happen. I probably should have did this, that, and that. And I think a lot of times we've made some of these Frankensteins that we talk about. You know what I mean? Just like, no, I should have did this. He don't even want to work. Well, he don't want to work because he feel like he got somewhere to stay. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you hungry, you gonna feed yourself. Right? Lab, you brought that to me that time. Right. Like people like, hey man, we talk about like, if I don't do this, the grandkids, we'll get the grandkids and let them whatever.
Let their ass go. Right.
I'm gonna kill myself.
Right.
Trying to sit here and do that. And I think a lot of times people don't want to sit here and look at what they didn't want to let the kids. Now, I'm taking my child, I'm doing my child homework. I'm doing my child tests. And the whole time, I'm thinking kid learning what? All right, Poochie, just look stressed. And daddy or mama gonna do it for me, right?
Look like y'all know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. So we started looking, I think, parents
play a
major role.
Major role
in that kind of stuff. Because again, now you say now, the joker 25, 30 years old, I want him out of my house. I want this, that, and that. I ain't playing that shit. I challenge any one of my children to call, hey man, hey, and I don't put my kids out. I prepare my kids to leave.
Right.
I hope
that's the word.
You know,
that's the phrase of the day.
Yeah. You know, so and they'd be kind of glad about getting the hell away from me too,
because they want to do their own thing.
But I never just threw them out. You know what I'm saying?
Slick says we're going through a bad era of not parenting but friending.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. You want to keep raising your friend. You know, you don't want to do that. You want them to speak their mind and all this other kind of stuff.
Right.
That's why I say you got to be realistic about certain things with your child or whatever, and you know, just get over that fear. The fear of them not growing and maturing and be able to take care of themselves or whatever should be greater than you seeing them get their feelings hurt or somebody. You think somebody being too hard on them and everything. You know, somebody mistreating your child,
right? And
you know when somebody helping develop your child. Because at the end of the day, nobody will give a damn. They grown, and a woman look real silly, fussing about to somebody's wife or girlfriend about, you know, you shouldn't talk to my son like that.
Right.
A man sitting here trying to say, well, look, that's my daughter. You doing this, that? Well, man, that's my wife.
Right.
And the man ain't beating her. He just, hey, this how we going through stuff. And now, Daddy, you steady injecting what. That ain't gonna happen.
Right, that ain't how it goes.
You know, now you got this grown woman, parents. We just got to be honest. What I say of like, hey, are we developing them to do, you know, to be able to lead in this? Again, we, you know, the humans probably the only animal. The bird leave them, the dogs, the lions, and every facet they have them. Give them to a certain point and leave. And you know, a lot of times people, what it is come down to that feel. And they got some mental stuff going on, health stuff going on, different situations. But for the most part, it's that fear. My baby gonna grow up. My baby gotta go. They can't handle that. They can't do that. They can't. They never will.
Right.
And they never will because you hadn't crippled them. Because you don't cripple them, you ain't try to sit here and push them to do better. So I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, man. I appreciate everybody tuned in and stuff. It was a great show. Good conversation and everything. And if you just came in the middle of it, remember, go to Change the Lives, hosted by Deonte Burden. That's Change the Lives, hosted by Deonte Burden. You'll see the blue man icon. So all you got to do is just hit on it, subscribe to the channel. You can see this video in its full entirety, along with the other 1,000 videos that's on there. One quick thing, guys. We did the Project 85,000, Project 85 on Mr. Short with 84 grand. 84,000, and I think the 25,000 for Change the Lives, we might be at 23, 24. We somewhere in the neighborhood, but keep subscribing, sharing the channel and stuff like that. A lot of great information there. I can't think of anything exciting going on in my life right now, but man, I just want to tell you all, tax season was good. Your boy got to, you know, shut it down next week and give me a little red R&R. Yeah, R&R. But I love you all, and I appreciate all the love and support you give me and all my family at Misfits Radio and TV. Y'all take care of yourself. Be safe, and I'll talk with you soon.